Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the World Cybersecurity Forum session on cyberspace and justice, progress and challenges. My name is Megha Ahuja. I am a practicing advocate at the Supreme Court of India and also the program head of Department of Cyber Affairs at the World Cybersecurity Forum, and I will be serving as your moderator today. You'll be hearing a presentation from Mr. Sébastien Lafrance on this very timely subject. But before we get started, I wanted to take a few minutes of your time. This session has been organized by World Cybersecurity Forum as a part of our International Cyber Mentorship Program 2021. As you all know, World Cybersecurity Forum is a globally prestigious cyber consultancy and web community that tends to create awareness in regard to various internet issues and goes as a wellspring of techno-legal information for professionals, students, teenagers, and middle-aged civilians around the globe. As a dedicated cybersecurity platform, WCSF has been catering unbiased information to professionals on countless security challenges that they come across every day. At today's session, we will discuss the cyberspace and justice, progress and challenges. Considering the growing scope of communications and interactions on the internet, this session will show how social and economic justice can be adapted to cyberspace to ensure more transparency, accountability, and interaction between the people who use internet and who manage and provide internet services. Hence, we have invited learned Mr. Sébastien Lafrance, Crown Counsel, Prosecution Services of Canada, to address the challenges of justice in cyberspace related to laws and regulation and their enforcement online. The speaker, Mr. Sébastien Lafrance, is a Crown Counsel for the Public Prosecution Service of Canada since 2013. He was a part-time professor of law at the University of Ottawa. He clerked at the Supreme Court of Canada and the Quebec Court of Appeal. He also worked as an in-house counsel at the Supreme Court of Canada. He has given many lectures on various legal issues around the world. He has published books, chapters, and articles in Australia, Canada, France, India, Indonesia, United Kingdom, and Vietnam in English, French, Vietnamese on criminal law, constitutional law, international law, artificial intelligence, and labor law, etc. I am personally very excited for this session as this is your last session. And now, without any further delay, I would like to call Mr. Sébastien Lafrance to take the session forward.
Thank you very much, Megha, for such a generous and nice introduction. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. So thanks a lot for this introduction. I'm also very excited to be with you this morning giving this lecture, which I was honestly looking forward to giving to you this morning, all of you. So it is also an honor to talk about this very topic. So you will see that unlike most general presentations that you have seen this morning, I will basically invite you to think, and there is some food for thought that you will think about and ponder about beyond this morning's presentation. Of course, I don't say any other presentation you don't think. Of course you do, not the point. But because of the items and the points I will raise this morning, it's the morning in Canada now, I know it's the evening in India, you will have food for thought, and some things that I will talk about this morning. And even for myself, it's not just that I do not think that you are a bunch of idiots. It's the opposite. It's because there are things that require time especially about the topic of this morning. You will see. Same for me. I realized stuff I wrote about, and then I said, oh yeah, there was this angle. Oh, there's this thing also that I could have discussed. And then this is a very, very wide, but at the same time, a rich topic that I hope I will share with you this morning fruitfully and with the best of my abilities and capacities. So I just will share my screen right now, and I warn you in advance, there will be two, well, There's no warning about this. It's actually a warning for fun. There will be 2 movie excerpts this morning that I will play in order to make connections with the presentation. So as you will see, this presentation will be very, very active. And I hope that you will enjoy it, of course. And just a little thing before I start. A little disclaimer. Yes, I'm a prosecutor for the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, but nothing that I say this morning is binding or maybe binding on the Government of Canada or the Public Prosecution Service of Canada or any governmental of Canada entities. So just to do this little waiver, this little disclaimer. So I'm now sharing my screen. I hope you can all see it. I think you do. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mega. If I can call you by your first name, it's not impolite, not meant to be disrespectful. It's the opposite. Actually, I'm really thankful for the invitation, and I would like to sincerely thank, by the way, the WCSF organization for bringing me into this this great seminar this morning that I have the chance to give to you. So we will discuss, as the first slide indicates, we'll talk about cyberspace and justice, progress and challenges. What does it mean? It's very broad, and that's meant to be so. There is no, you will see some we expect very specific answers to very specific questions. I'm telling you in advance, you will be disappointed. This is not a seminar where you can ask, oh, what is this article or this section of this code that answers my question? It's not what this is about. So it's more, it basically, we will address almost, because it's not pure philosophical issues, but there will be some philosophical ideas and some more in-depth ideas that will be discussed this morning for sure. So this is why cyberspace and justice, well, what am I going to talk about? I'll talk about it, but in a broad sense, and you'll see what I mean as the lecture goes on and continues. So the bright side of artificial intelligence or the cyberspace or the internet, and I belong, and let me give you an example. I belong probably to the last generation. It's weird to say, honestly, it's really strange to say, but I really belong to the last generation who knew the absence of technology, so to speak. Though the widespread or of computers, of personal computers, of PCs or Apple computers, whichever way you call it, it's in the 80s. I'm born in 1975. So I belong to an era where, as a youth, when I was young, where my adoptive dad used to type with a typewriter, a physical one, is books, because he published a few books in France about the history of France. So what is interesting here is, and I will make a connection with the slide here, is the young people may not realize it, but, you may think that, oh yeah, this guy, Mr. Sébastien Lafrance, is so old-fashioned, he does not understand, and he would like to go back to the old days. No, it's not what I mean. But looking at what is stated by the former Chief Justice of Canada, Beverly McLaughlin, on the first slide, what she says is basically that technology is a great thing for lawyers because it helps to work faster. It benefits the lawyering profession enormously because it gives tools that we didn't have before. And I give you the example, various example of jurisprudential research. Before, we had tools like websites that allows to search decisions in a fast and easy way, very convenient. We had to do it paper, we had to know it, and we have to read it, have to search like physically in person, in books, etc., etc. So it is definitely a good sign. The bad side of it, and we will see a few of them later on, The bad side of it is sometimes it's so easy that the impact on the thought process. If you're not aware of this, of course, there's always a good thing to the technology. But if you're not aware of, okay, I'm going too fast, I'm cutting corners short, I'm just citing one paragraph from one decision out of context, I didn't read the entire decision because I typed it in the legal search engine, found it, looks relevant, I include it in my factum, it looks pretty nice, I will argue it, bingo, took me 2 minutes. You may lose the point because you didn't think about it. So the bad side, as opposed to this bright side, which is access, the free access to the technology, to the information, basically, that's what it is. So technology opens the door of knowledge way faster for everything. Language learning, for law issues, for various things. But if you take it and make it easy, lazy, actually, should I say, and do not work and think about what you find, then this may harm your case. And we'll see it more later on as well. There's a few examples. So the technology also changed the nature of the issues. And there's the example of the court and of the Supreme Court of Canada and Jarvis, but there are many examples everywhere. Like sexting, for example, this is a crime. So if you do it with somebody who's not consenting, like there are many things, or all the tools that are used for technology for bad purposes, like money laundering, it's another example. So it's using the technology to do this. Can you, to go back to the first example of sexting, can you send a message on paper, not using the technology, that is offensive to a person and of sexual nature, and then could be yes, you can. Can you also, to go to the second example, can you do money laundering by going in person to a bank, not using technological means, and then commit the crime of money laundering? Again, yes, you can. So it doesn't necessarily change everything. It doesn't change the human nature. But the technology accommodates, on the bad side, unfortunately, the types of the ways crimes are committed, and oftentimes make it more complicated. Because if you do a money transfer, for instance, and then by technology, then you have to if it's encrypted, if the transfer is encrypted, there are many ways you can protect your identity, which you cannot do in person. If I present myself in a bank and I want to commit the crime of money laundering, it's my face which will be caught on camera. It's my signature will be caught. So there are things like this. So we have to be aware at the very core, and I'm not going in depth here about how it's done. And it's not a presentation about money laundering or sexual offenses committed over online. But what I would like you to realize and keep in mind is that the technology itself, the evolution of the technology itself, changed totally the nature of the legal issues. 30, 40, 50 years ago, all these issues may have existed in a different form, but now it creates problems, legal problems. How do you file these things in court? For example, if you have, to go back to the sexting offenses, like you say, send a picture, an appropriate picture to someone who didn't ask for it, and there is no consenting, etc. How do you prove that? So there are issues of evidence issues that are triggered. As before, if it was on paper, well, you file a piece of paper and there's no, but if it's on the cell phone, you have all these privacy issues that may be triggered more than often. That's one example. So technology changed the way we see law, not entirely, but it changed the nature of the issues we are dealing with. So now the picture you see, it's meaningful. So that's the picture of Sophia. It's an AI robot, which basically, there are many interviews. I invite you, for those who are interested more about this aspect of the presentation. On YouTube, there are many videos. This is not one of the videos I will show this morning, but there are many interviews with her, and that's pretty. My wife, she told me, oh, it's creepy, it's scary, because she does have, she displays emotions very close to human emotions, reacts almost like a human being. But what we close, it doesn't mean we are close to singularity. Could you have a robot for our profession, for lawyers? Could you have a robot, and we'll see it later on, could you have a robot going to court, arguing your case, replacing you? So basically, you're not paid anymore. You're not having a job. A robot, which is, I don't know, it costs a lot of thousands, but it's a one payment and it's over, let's say. Could robots replace you? My answer will be no, but we'll see. What there are two camps. We'll see both sides, but we will. I would like to first address the idea of emotions, and that's connected to what we'll see later on. And this excerpt of a decision from the federal court is very relevant to that aspect of the presentation. So are we really, basically what this citation says is, are we really talking about real emotions? No, we don't, because there is a lack of consciousness. A robot is a machine that replicates or displays or mimics, to talk in with respect to the definition of artificial intelligence. So that mimics, imitates human behavior. So language, memory, understand. The robot does not understand it, processes the information. So it's all things we have to be aware about. So are our profession challenged? Yes. Are the profession of lawyers threatened? I would say no, but some people say yes. Yes, it is. So now what I will suggest to do is to move to I will share another screen if I may. I would like to show you one video for 2 minutes, and I will comment about it and make connections with the law. So you will know what I'm talking about. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. So just listen to this and watch it, and I'll get back to you after that, and we'll discuss about this aspect of one of the challenges that it poses to our profession.
My father tried to teach me human emotions. They are difficult.
You mean you're a designer?
Yes.
So why'd you murder him?
I did not murder Dr. Lanning.
Want to explain why you were hiding at the crime scene?
I was frightened.
Robots don't feel fear. They don't feel anything. They don't get hungry, they don't sleep.
I do. I have even had dreams.
Human beings have dreams. Even dogs have dreams, but not you. You are just a machine. An imitation of life. Can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
Can you?
I think you murdered him because he was teaching you to simulate emotions and things got out of control.
I did not murder him.
But emotions don't seem like a very useful simulation for a robot.
I did not murder him.
What the hell, I don't want my toaster or my vacuum cleaner appearing emotional.
I did not murder him!
Okay, so going back to our presentation here, there we go. So going back that's an excerpt from that's Sony's interrogation in iRobot. That's an old movie, well, old for not for me, but for you, I guess. It was in 2004. Basically depicts it's a future where robots are very close to human beings, and there is this Sonny who is accused of murdering his designer, or his father, as he calls him. So in terms of legal issues, and that's the types of challenges that are facing us in the future, and that's why I wanted to show an excerpt of a movie, because somebody can talk and talk, but a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a movie is always, of course, even more fun than just words, and more useful than just one picture, in my opinion. So if you watched the excerpt very carefully, you'll see I did not murder him. So could you, and one of the legal issues that are raised here, could a robot be accused of committing a murder? Is that a person? Is a robot a person? Is a robot a citizen in the first place? You know, in Japan, there's one robot who was given a permanent residentship status. There's one country, I believe it's Qatar or Saudi Arabia, in the Arabic Peninsula, one of these countries, which granted citizenship to a robot. And it's not without legal consequences. Legal. In Canada, if you're a citizen, you have rights. Of course, in any countries, of course, what am I talking about? In India, you have rights if you're a citizen. But fundamental rights if you are a citizen. So then, if a citizen is, the status of citizenship is granted to a robot can say, no, you cannot kill me because I have the right to life. You cannot unplug me because I have the right to life. You have the duty to rescue me if I'm in danger, if I have a short circuit, doesn't work, my arms is broken or something, technical issues. There's a duty to help, or there's even, it's the Quebec Charter of Rights, like there's a duty to rescue, and international law there is as well. And on and on and on. And the right to be language rights. So it's like everything, all the rights. So if robots are granted a status of citizens, it triggers I would say, a Pandora's box, but at least with still remaining neutral, it does bring up plenty of new legal issues. So going back to this excerpt of Sonny's interrogation, he said also, from a criminal law perspective only, we just talked about fundamental rights, but bringing the criminal law field in the discussion here, is really Sonny who killed that Professor Landing, or that is father? Can a robot, a machine, commit murder? And the answer may be, yeah, no, it's easy. No, it's not an easy legal question, because if a robot is granted the status of citizen, then there are rights, but also obligations. Obligations such as respecting life, not committing murder, obviously, as any other citizen, and all the crimes that may be committed by human beings, now a robot could be found guilty of. And we're talking about the future, I understand it, but the future is now somehow, and we'll see why in a few minutes, I swear, with the example of the predictive analysis for crimes, and the social credit system as well in China, or that's also like there's a social credit system somehow in Western countries. So the future is not tomorrow. The future is now, or at least it started now. So in that case, can a machine be found guilty of criminal offense like murder? Can it be found, or a civil action, if you send a robot like Sonny in a business doing corporate espionage? Can the robot, or there would be the extent of the civil responsibility for the corporate espionage would be, or criminally, depending on how it's covered in each country, in this and that country, could it be punished by courts as the person responsible, or who would be punished? The designer, the people who create the robot, the people who worked on creating the robot, the people who entered the data in the robot, the people who gave the money for the creation of the robot. You see, it's not necessarily all the same person, unless it's we have somebody who's filthy rich, can pay the creation of a robot, is smart enough to do data entry and do everything. That will be different entities. Then to whom do you attach legal responsibility, if not directly to the robot itself? So all in all, the definition of artificial intelligence is basically to mimic human intelligence to solve complex issues. There are many definitions. This is one of them. I found it very useful and very straightforward. So basically, that's the imitation of human intelligence to solve complex problems. But when it comes, and as we have seen, when it comes to emotions, it goes outside of this box, because it's not the problem-solving aspect that is addressed. It's how you replicate and mimic human emotions, human thinking, human consciousness. And we're not there yet. The soul of human beings cannot be replicated. Well, maybe as it can look like it, but it's not it by in and of itself. So there are two, and I said it earlier. The Siskin brothers, they're very smart people. I don't agree with their perspective, but it doesn't prevent the fact that these are very, very important authors, important people in the field, that nobody can deny that. But still, they contended, at least at a certain point in time, that technologies and robots, and I paraphrase what they're saying here, that because of the law, the legal work, I'm sorry, is so repetitive that basically robots would eventually, or artificial technology would eventually replace humans doing that. And that's one side. The other side, with which I have to say I agree, but it's not the point to agree or not. The point is to think, like I said at the very beginning of this presentation. So robots are not going to replace us. And why? Let me give you an example. When you go to court, and we'll see more examples later on, when you go to court, we have a case, you have facts. Facts can be transformed, changed into data. But if I go to see a judge and I recite facts without putting emphasis on this fact, because I do believe that this fact is more important based on my analysis, somebody can reply to me, yes, that can all be done by robots. There can be very complex equations, algorithms that are applied to the facts that select more important facts than others. So Sébastien, you are full of whatever, you're wrong, because robots can all do that. Okay, fair enough. But what about you really want to drive to nail the point, bring the point home, and you want to insist, because there's always a human perception of how things can and may be argued. And of course, technology, and sometimes it's complex, and convincing someone, if the judge is not a robot himself or herself, and we'll see it later on, that this is something that has started to be happening. Robot justice. Again, future is now. But to convince someone, it's not only based on facts and the law, it's on how it is presented. Oftentimes, and we have Megha, who works at the Supreme Court of India, she knows, and many of you know as well, when you are presented with two sets of good arguments, it's not always dark and bright and white and black and all clear that what is good, what is right, angel and demons. It's not how it works in the law. You have to really walk on eggshells sometimes and really think and ponder issues. So for very basic things, perhaps like a ticket, if you drove too fast at, I don't know, over the speed limit, and you got a speeding ticket, maybe this is something that can be regulated by AI, and then if there's a camera that catches you, and it already does actually, you can get a ticket, and then there's no way to challenge it. But what if you have a good defense even for a speed ticket? Yes, you committed the crime, but if, I don't know, 2 kilometers ahead, your wife was being stabbed to death by people, and then you sped up and you wanted to get there as soon as possible to help your wife. So that's an excuse, a possible defense. So you sped up for, I don't know, 10 kilometers faster than the speed limit, then you committed a crime. Or it doesn't mean you have to necessarily, no explanation is accepted for that kind of crime, and then you have to pay. Is that the kind of justice we want? I don't think so. Of course, you have to present the evidence in your defense. I'm not saying just bring up any defense and you're good to go. It's not what I'm saying. Obviously, I'm a crown prosecutor, so I know, believe me. But what I'm saying is, it's not as simple as it looks like to replace lawyers with technology and with robots. I do not say for certain offenses that it's not possible. It is. But still, even for those circumstances, it's difficult. Like for offenses, for example, you have to prove the guilty mind, the mens rea. How can you prove a guilty mind with pure facts using technology? Yes, you can have emails where somebody sends an email to somebody else saying, oh yeah, I have the intention of killing this person, or to do money laundering offense, or please, let's do a conspiracy to do this. Then it's evidence. Yes, and this email is physical evidence, can be used in court, can be presented. It's a pure facts. Fair enough. What about the discussion? What about the tone? What about if it was a joke? I don't say joke excuses crimes. It does not. Actually, there's case law about this in Canada about threats that says no. So, but still, human perception, human assessment, human evaluation of facts is necessary still. Now, let's move on to, there's a second excerpt of a movie I would like to show you, movie from 2002. It's only 2 minutes. And then we will talk about it right after. Just give me a second here. My apologies. Yep, I'm sure. I hope you see it. Yes. Sorry for the wait. There you go. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Imagine a world without murder.
I lost my best friend.
I lost my aunt.
I lost my dad.
I lost my father.
I lost my wife.
Just 6 years ago, the homicide rate in this country had reached epidemic proportions. It seemed that only a miracle could stop the bloodshed. But instead of one miracle, we were given 3, the precognitives. Within just 1 month under the pre-crime program, the murder rate in the District of Columbia was reduced 90%.
They were going to be waiting for me in the car.
He was going to rape me.
I was going to be stabbed.
Right here.
Within a year, pre-crime effectively stopped murder in our nation's capital.
In the 6 years we've been conducting our little experiment, there hasn't been a single murder.
And now pre-crime can work for you.
We want to make absolutely.
So let's go back to the presentation. So you watch this here. So what does it say? It's basically it's the use of predictive analysis. So foreseeing the future. So it's of course it's in the year 2054. It's a dystopian type movie. It's not the reality now. Well, it is more and more. And this is why I would like to talk about this angle of the one of the impacts of the technology as well. So there are tools now. So there are crime prediction softwares. At least, for example, there's the software that's called COMPAS. It's an acronym. So COMPAS. which is used in several states in the United States of America, that basically predicts if someone is going to commit a crime again. So if they are to reoffend again. So it uses a variety, as I said in the on here on the slide. It uses various techniques that analyze past and present facts, so to predict the future. So it looks pretty much so using facts of the present and the past, and then predicting the future. And these are softwares that are used in courts, not only in the US, but in other places. I forgot which countries, but specifically, but I know it's not only the US. Or facial recognition, for example, is used. We'll talk about it later, but let's focus on pre-crime now. So the future is now again, and it does raise several, and this is actually the place where, you know, when I told you at the very beginning that I will raise things that will make you think, and I'm not saying the other presentations don't, but this one raises more questions than specific answers. I have my own answer, but it doesn't matter. What I would like you to have in mind is questions and think about these questions. So let's identify them. So first of all, the presumption of innocence. What about that? Well, if you can predict the future, then there's no where goes the principle of the presumption of innocence? You're found guilty anyway. There's a prediction that says, yes, you will commit this crime, so you are not innocent. So goodbye the fundamental right of the presumption of innocence that goes on for centuries. Let's forget about presumption of innocence. Let's get rid of that fundamental right. Who cares? We have technology now that allows, or not now necessarily in all cases, but we could eventually for corruption cases also. Like there are softwares in Brazil, for example, I'm thinking, or Vietnam or India even, that are used, softwares, to deal with the prediction of potential civil servants. That's in Brazil, actually, for this one, that helps to predict who will commit a crime of corruption or bribe amongst the public servants. Where is the presumption of innocence? So if you can really predict, and of course the movie is a bit different. Obviously, in the movie Minority Reports, they do see and predict what the future will be. Factually speaking, every single thing is seen in this. So that's not the case. It's still different. However, there are very close similarities, and it has the issue of, it raises the issue of the presumption of innocence. What about the right to privacy? What about every single thing in your life, or there are so many at some point, and we'll see it later on with the social credit system in China, and even in the US or the Western world with the credits, because the credit card companies that basically ask you so many questions, it becomes, or the insurance part, the contracts that you sign and don't think about it and give a lot of personal information. Where is the right to privacy? And as we know, in Canada, it's been a fundamental right, the right to privacy, since decades. In India, it is a fundamental right since the decision in Puttaswamy rendered by the Supreme Court of India. It's a famous decision. We all know it. So what about the right to privacy? If all information, in order to predict the crimes, you have to provide everything about who you are, and then it becomes very invasive. Maybe there's a middle ground. So this is where I'm asking you to think about this. I'm giving you facts or legal issues, but of course there are not clear-cut answers to this. So what about the independence of the judiciary? Why do I raise that? Because if a judge relies entirely on a machine, on the prediction tool, for someone to commit or not commit a crime, even though there are many variables, where does he or she stand if she relies entirely on it? She may be inspired, influenced, impacted, name it the way you want. But the issue of the independence of the judiciary, basically the machine, the artificial intelligence tool or the technological tool, replaces judges somehow, or to a certain extent. What about the uniformization of the legal reasoning? So in this set of facts, all decisions will get towards that way. Well, we'll get towards that direction. And we all know we are common lawyers, right? So I'd say we know the law evolves because of the facts. So, and one single fact may change the entire thing. But if based on several variables, there's only one outcome at the end of it, where goes the evolution of the law? Is it dying? Is it useless? Are we calling the end of the common law system? Of course, the last one is a bit exaggerated. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there's more than one solution. And one example of this, and that I will connect it to the last point, and I will go back to impartiality, but I will connect uniformization with the sentencing, the last item in the slide here. So sentencing, as the Supreme Court of Canada said, and India must be on the same page, I'm sure. It's a highly individualized process. You cannot sentence someone. There's the parity principle in criminal law, for example, that exists. So similar facts must be sentenced in a similar fashion. Similar, not exactly. There can be one detail that changes it all. Like maybe the person is a dad and the other accused doesn't have a family. Maybe the background. So that this is why defense counsel tells the judge all about the background of the accused before the accused is sentenced, after the Crown's submission, the prosecutor's submission, because the defense counsel wants to provide as much detail as possible about the accused so that the sentencing is highly individualized. It becomes customized to that very person. So what if, because of the technology, judges don't care anymore? Let's say we uniformize the sentencing process, the legal reasoning for the sentencing, and we apply to a set of facts, even though there are details that are different, but to a set of facts, we always sentence a person the same way. Yes, I do know the parity principle. It's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I know my criminal law. Don't worry. What I'm talking about is beyond that point. For when it comes to peculiar specific details that may change, not necessarily a lot. Maybe for if the person is sentenced to a jail sentence for one offense, maybe the person will get more months in jail, less months in jail for this and that specific detail. But still, this influences that this is the judge's call, not the machine's call. And then what about impartiality? What about the judge who wants to decide by himself or herself? If the machine takes all over, the machine says, oh, because of this fact or of these 28 or 35 variables, I suggest you to sentence this person to 2 years in jail, in custody. What if there's an appeal on this sentence? Let's say the judge says, no, I disagree. I sentence this person for 5 years because of this and that factor. What about that? Is the judge's decision going to be reversed because the machine said differently? Is it going to be used as an argument by defense counsel saying the machine said differently than the judge? The machine does not make mistakes. The machine is right. But do not forget something also on top of these issues, adding to these issues. What about bias? Bias can be changed and transformed into a data. What about you include racial prejudices into the data? What about you put as a supposedly neutral data that all dark-skinned people commit crimes more than white-skinned people? You cannot put that, oh, you say, no, it's neutral data because we have data to back it up, et cetera, et cetera. Then it impacts and it becomes basically a racist legal tools that is meant to be neutral but is not. What about facial recognition in that circumstance, under those circumstances? Basically, you can input data to target specific facial features that belong to specific ethnic groups. So all these issues, and there are many here, all of them are fundamental core legal issues, are triggered because of the technology, because of the tools that now exist, because of artificial intelligence. You see, so the distance between robots, artificial intelligence, the technology, and ourselves in the legal profession triggers all these issues. So as I said earlier, and I will repeat it here because it's worth it and it's very short, artificial intelligence, it's simply a new addition. So I told you, I gave you the example of sexting and money laundering earlier as examples of offenses that can be committed, not necessarily using the technology. But so artificial intelligence also in the same spirit, the same breath, that's only an addition to the possibilities that exist that are used by law enforcement. But technology, as I said, makes evidence or evidentiary rule evolve as well, right? So to go back to, and here we can see the example of COMPAS, the acronym of the tool that is used in the United States. So it basically is a scoring system, right? So it's a software that aims to predict the likelihood of recidivism of people who commit crimes again or not through a scoring system. And we'll talk the next slide. The last one is about this exactly, the scoring system in China. So in Estonia first, and Estonia was the first country to declare AI power judge that was created to settle small court claims. So why is that? I put it there for one reason. It's small court claims. Why? Because these cases, as I said earlier, are very simple, usually, factually speaking, right? So if you go a murder case and you're afraid that we talk about a murder case or a complex corruption case or a complex money laundering case or a complex, I don't know, any kind of cases that are civil side, maybe a complex contract case that require contracts analysis, that is not possible to have a judge who will be basically an artificial intelligence judge to look at the case. It's not. But for simpler, I guess the Estonian system is again based on various variables which were input into transform into data. So for the analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So this is possible for, like I said, for small cases. And same, the last example on the slide, an example from my home province in Canada, Quebec. So basically, it is also used, Régie du Logement, it's the estate or the rentals organization of the government that helps renters to assert their rights. So these are usually for real estate issues. This is possible because factually speaking, it's usually basic. But the technology evolves and it evolves fast. So that the next step, and I would say, I would categorize the first one, Estonia, and the one in Canada, the Quebec justice bot system. These are for small claims, small court claims. But the one in the United States with so many variables, it's fancier, more complicated. What I would like to bring your attention to here at that slide, and that slide is the scoring system idea, because this is something we'll talk about now. This is the scoring credit system in China. I'll talk about it briefly, but this is something, in my opinion, that exists somehow also in the Western world. So basically what it is, it rates people based on their behavior. So it's not centralized. Some false information have been spread about this, but it's not a centralized system. It will be at a certain point. That's the idea of it, but not yet. So basically, if you eat a hot dog and you eat bad food, or you eat good food, you will be granted credits if you eat good food, but taken away points. You lose points if you eat bad food, or if you don't help people. And it's all basically on your phone, and it checks everything you do. Okay, some people, I've seen a video about it. I was a bit shocked. There was a Chinese lady who was very happy about the social credit system, and she said, well, I couldn't go to a hotel, and because of my good behavior, now I can afford a trip. So it has advantages for the population, but that's advantages, factual advantages. But think about the law. If you have to disclose all the information about what you're doing, what kind of legal issues does it raise? Privacy issues. And also, some people who may commit a bad action, not necessarily horrible, but a bad action, and they change their behavior, well, it may impact in the future for job applications. That also does apply. So if you have a bad credit, a bad rating, there are certain jobs you will not be able to get. There's a famous case of a professor, a teacher, who basically lost his job because of this. And how can you assess that just because of a system like this? Of course, I'm not going to delve into the details. I invite you to read my article if you're interested. It's showing on the slide here. But there are all these fundamental law issues, the right to privacy, the right to be forgiven in the future, that the rehabilitation is forgotten as well. It's important. If you commit something bad, and then even for a murder case, of course, you will not be released. There will be a sentence that is proportionate to the commission of the offense, probably sentencing to be to spend life in jail, but still their rehabilitation is also must be consideration. Different weights will be given depending on the crime, but it's not something that can be still simply forgotten about and taken away. Here, the social credit system, to me, it sends like a message to it. It's basically will give you a rating out of a certain number, and then you will get positive things or negative things happening in your life because of it. There's a movie on Netflix. I could have put an excerpt about this, but it's not a presentation about movies only. You will excuse me about this, but there's a very interesting. I talk about the TV series on Netflix in my article. That's how I start. I will refer you to it, but this is something that's also quite interesting to keep in mind when we talk about the cyberspace and technological issues. Also, this is the future, and some can say yes, it's all in China. It will not happen in our countries. Oh no, really? Okay, what about the like? I'm not gonna mention any brand name of businesses, but for a credit card system, they assess, okay, can he pay properly? Does he pay properly? And if so, it will impact on, okay, can you rent a car? Can you buy a house? Because we will check your credit if you, in the Western world, India, US, Canada, and so on. Have a good credit? Okay, that's good. I did my own credit when I rented this place where I live right now. I did my credit. I had to do it. And then I was giving a number. I was just a number, not a person anymore. And then I thank God I had a good credit. So, but what if I didn't have a good credit? Does it make me a worse prosecutor? I don't think so. Just because I did that in the past, let's say I don't know, but like I leave it to your imagination. But so this impacts people's lives. This has fundamental legal issues, not only privacy, but also various other rights, as we have seen briefly. So I see time flies. It's 10:24. So I would like to say bahut dhanyavad, shukriya. Thank you very much for your attention. So you can see a list of the articles I published here. So if you're interested, then I have no problem with the PowerPoint being shared with people who would ask WCSF to share it with them. So it was a sincere pleasure to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sébastien. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this very interesting session. We really loved it. If you allow, can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So I have also shared it with you, so you can read it side by side.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So my first question is, can AI be dangerous in future?
I would say yes, and we have the example of the cyber weapons, and this is something that was the case of the Jessup International Law Moot Court last year that I judged. Happily, it was it last year or the year before? Anyway, it was in one of the Jessup editions. cyber weapons, it is potentially, and that's controlled by artificial intelligence, right? So for example, it detects if a person is or is not a danger, and then will kill or harm that person accordingly. That's a simplification of it. But what about the person is innocent? What about there's a bug in the data entry? What about there is racial bias and the person is killed? Let's say my wife always says I'm not white. I'm pink, because she says my skin is pink and not white, making fun of me. So let's say the cyber weapon detects only pink skinned people and kill them. Well, I don't want to be there. I don't want to die because there's a racial bias in that machine. So is it dangerous? Yes, potentially, very much so. Very much so. Question number 2.
Yeah, let me read out for you. So thank you so much for answering this one. And my next question is how to deal with the jurisdiction issue in cyber world.
Oh wow, it is so complicated, honestly. That I gave a presentation at Interpol in Singapore online about this partially. So that's a complex issue. So is it how can you locate where the crime is committed? Some people will answer it briefly. And this is, again, I have to repeat, anything I'm saying is not binding on my job, because it may have consequences what I say on my job. So I'm always careful to mention it once or twice that nothing I say is binding on my job as prosecutor for the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. And this one is one of those issues. For example, if a crime is committed in Canada, let's say on a computer that is located in Canada, but how do you say that it really did happen in Canada, because it was done under cyberspace and the IP address is in India, let's say. And then the crime, yes, the IP address was in India, but the crime was really committed in Indonesia, because this is where the crime happened. So how do you determine issues about that? And this is something, actually, there's a master of law that's been that I read about only this. So this is a very complex issue. Unfortunately, I will not be able to address it properly in such a short period of time. But the only thing I will bring to attention is perhaps the origin of the crime. That could be one identifier. The origin of the person committing the crime, where the person is physically, but also it's all easy answers, and it's way more complex than that. But that's a start for an answer that would require more time than this.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering this one so precisely and so nicely. My next question is, if we assume that robots can also commit crime, then we might need serious laws on artificial intelligence. What do you suggest about that?
Oh yeah, and there's the famous. I don't know if people can see me right now. I hope so. Answering the question. Oh, we are recording. That's good. Yes, there's the 3 laws, right? At the very beginning of iRobots, the movie, and of course I read it also. It's not, I don't use movies as references, but there's the 3 laws, the 3 basic laws that a robot cannot hurt or harm human beings, and these are real laws that have been created before that movie. So it's not that movie itself. I think it's Asimov who created them. It's in one of his books. It was science fiction book, but still these principles have been repeated and taken elsewhere as well. So So to really answer directly the question about should we have more targeted laws? Yes, and in Europe, basically the EU, the European Union, revisited the notion of robots. What is a robot? What is the extent of robots' responsibility? I know it sounds silly, but they did revisit it, and the law is greatly evolving about this. Of course, it takes time. It does affect everybody. But to answer the question directly, do we need serious laws on artificial intelligence because robots can also commit crimes? Oh yes, and I'm not the only one who says that. So it's this is something that needs to be taken into account and needs to be addressed for sure.
Okay, thank you so much for answering this one. My next question is, in the past, we have seen robots have committed serious crime, and Sophia, an AI robot, mentioned that she wants to kill all humans. So, what changes must be done in criminal laws to cover the crimes committed by them?
Yeah, I remember that. Actually, I saw that interview. She says that, and she smiles like as if it's a joke. Are you kidding me? You want to kill all humans? And then, yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Sophia. How criminal laws must be changed? Well, if and question 4 and 3 are intertwined, I would suggest, because if how a artificial intelligence is addressed by laws, it will impact on also criminal law. So if there must be changes eventually that are addressed directly in criminal law in order to extend responsibly. But again, I want to be careful about my answer, so that's why I hesitate. Because if you include robots as potentially committing crimes, what people are going to do? People will create robot to kill people and then blame the robot. I'm not guilty. I built a robot to kill. I didn't kill anybody. The robot did kill somebody. So it's all about how can you apply the liability, the responsibility of the actions that are taken, right? So it's usually in civil law, it would be easy, between quotes, not super easy, but what they would do would say, okay, the creator of the robot or the people who created the data, etc. So the data entry or etc. will be found liable. So I say easy like this because it's not that easy to identify this and that right person. But definitely criminal laws will need to change and adjust eventually, that's for sure. But how? Very difficult to answer. Actually, that this itself could be, if somebody's interested to write about this, I'm telling you that would be a great paper to write about.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you throw some lights on the laws proposed by EU on AI in April 2021?
No, I can't actually. It's I read them, but it's a bit blurry now, so I have to say I would like to, but no, I apologize, but I will not be able to answer this question this morning. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. My next question is that, as we know, AI is a machine and it has both light and dark side. Then why states are discussing on the concept of cyber or AI personhood?
In all fairness and in all honesty, and I have the same question, honestly. Why? Because you saw my that question probably was arose when I discussed about Japan that granted permanent residentship, and then Saudi Arabia or Qatar or one of the Arabic Peninsula countries granting citizenship directly to a robot. I don't know. It's not that I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't understand why. Well, this is a very interesting issue, though. But personally, and I'm here because I'm giving this lecture, but I do not understand why. And there's an explanation. Anthropomorphism, or whichever word it is. So basically, it is the human being reaction projecting human behavior on animals. For example, is, oh, my little dog, my friend. Yes, a dog is an animal. It can be friendly, it can be nice, but you cannot have a deep conversation with a dog. You can have a soliloquy, you can talk about your problems to your dog, but your dog's intelligence is very limited. I'm not saying your dog is stupid, I'm not saying your cat is stupid. I love pets and I love animals, but they don't have the intelligence of human beings. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But not you, Mega, of course, but you as everybody. So, and this brings us back to the federal court excerpt I included, the citation I included about. So it's because we want to see ourselves in the robots, right? So it's We want to see robots having emotions. I bring your attention again to the excerpt of the movie I played, the iRobot. We want to see ourselves and them having emotions like ours, talking like us, understanding or pretending to understand things like we do, etc., etc. And one can reply to this, but you're wrong, Seb. You're wrong, because basically, and this is also why this excerpt from the movie iRobot is so nice to play about this topic. Is, well, when Sonny Ask replies back to Will Smith statement that, can you play a symphony? Can you create a symphony? And can you paint a masterpiece, etc., etc. So, and the robots reply, can you? Back to Will Smith. And he can't, obviously, and I can't, and you can't. Well, maybe you can, if so, you're lucky. But and robots can paint, robots can draw, robots can do magnificent things. They can play music, but it's all about data. And the data that have been entered in the machine are from human origin. So yes, somebody can say, Seb, again, you're wrong. You don't understand, because there is now the self-learning artificial intelligence. I know the machines can learn to learn, and this becomes a bit scary, because that brings us to another movie. I'm sorry, I'm very movie-like this morning, but that brings us to what? To the Matrix. Because if the machine can learn to learn, at some point they will learn to learn by themselves and become independent from us. Eventually, who knows? But we're not there yet. Will we get there eventually? I don't know. Not the answer. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a futurologist or that kind of people. So it's super interesting and cool, but let's stick to the law. But again, this concept, and you see this question I found very basic. You see, I'm just kind of stop talking about it. That triggers also fundamental rights issues, like I said earlier. So yeah, another good paper to write about that. And I'm not going to write more about this issue. So if you want to write about this, you should. Not any of you. That's a very interesting topic. So why states are discussing about this? Is it to protect themselves? Is it to show off? Because honestly, sometimes it could be seen as a marketing stunt. I'm not saying it is, but they say, oh yeah, we granted Sophia citizenship of whatever country. It's like, it's a robot. It's it's a bit offensive also. To me, honestly, I did a moot court. I won a moot court and an international law in 2006 in Tunisia about refugee and migrants' rights. Like, honestly, you're gonna grant citizenship to a goddamn robot. I'm sorry to swear, but to a goddamn robot, not to human beings who are starving to death. Like, come on. So there are all these issues that are raised. It's really going all over the place, as you can see and can hear me. So that's a very interesting topic to write about.
Thank you so much for answering this one. My last question is, what is your take on use of AI augmented weapons like killer robot autonomous weapon system in armed conflicts? Since non-state actors also have access to advanced technology, the threat seems to be very real.
It is. It is. What about a billionaire who decides to create his own army with autonomous weapon system? Of course, there are regulations, there are laws, it's not legal. And we can think of bad people in James Bond's movie creating machines that will destroy the human race, etc. So, but to keep it serious, on the serious side, it is a real danger. If you have the money nowadays, and of course, if you can bypass the laws, and laws became more and more difficult to enforce and to apply nowadays. So I'm telling you, being a crown prosecutor, I mean, I don't want to praise my work and the work of my dedicated colleagues, all of them, but I'm telling you, and being a prosecutor nowadays, it's not an easy task, because you're facing challenges like this. How do you prosecute this and that? How do you prove this and that? not saying I don't want to complain, not the point. But is this a real threat to have a killer robot, autonomous weapon system in our conflict? Yeah, big time. First of all, also legally speaking, think about the Geneva Convention, right? So that's there are some weapons which were like some types of chemicals weapon which are forbidden to be used in warfare. For example, the Geneva Convention and other conventions that are forbidden to be used. And like because of like let's talk about napalm that was used in Vietnam. So that was their convention. It's several decades ago, but nowadays there's still a bioweapon that are called this way. So bioweapon that is a very dangerous thing. So what about autonomous weapon system? Could there be eventually an international convention that forbids the use of them? Well, this is a very interesting international law issue. That actually, like I said, was the subject of the JSF Moot Court last year or the year before, or something recently that I had the chance to judge. So does it create a real threat, a real issue? Big time. Yes, it is a threat. It is a danger. And with all dangers, what the law does is covers it, delineates what's possible, what's not, maybe totally bans it, maybe allows it only for this and that purpose, even though, but that's my personal opinion. Let's say you put on a border to protect your border, you you take out the custom people and you replace them with killer robots. What about the kid? What about the child who crosses the border by mistake? He's gonna die just because he crossed the border by mistake and his goddamn soccer ball went overboard and then he's killed? Like, honestly? And his mom calls him, oh, come back. But he's a child and he crosses the border. And then robot doesn't make a distinction. Oh, he's not a citizen of our country. Okay, equals, kill them. He dies, 4-year-old. Is that justice? Absolutely not. It's crazy justice. I'm sorry. I get. So there's a lot to think about. Actually, I have to say all these 7 questions were super interesting. My apologies to not answer the question about EU. It's just that it would take a lot of time. But I did mention the EU and the evolution of the EU, so I would have liked to address it more properly in light of the development of April 2021, but I couldn't. But very, very, very smart. And each question was super interesting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sébastien, for answering all my questions so patiently and addressing this very interesting topic. It was an honor for all of us to have your guidance on this very timely subject. And thank you so much, attendees, for sparing your precious time for us. And also thanks to WCSF for this beautiful program and such interesting session.
Thank you very much. Shukriya.
Shukriya. Thank you so much.